I think this is, same with priests. I think it's a detrimental rule because many priests were the smartest of our peoples, and if they don't have children, well, this is this genetic, basically, like mindset.
Look at this hijabi queen. This is a good picture of a beautiful Muslim sister, dressed modestly, covering herself. What's wrong?
Oh, yeah.
It's just a piece of cloth draped over a woman. We want shape, we want elegance, we want style.
But I tell you what, right? I wouldn't have. I feel.
Someone said, Elrod, would you like to marry a Palestinian Muslim wife?
No, and it doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not. For me, race is always first.
So you like a German,
Ethnicity as well.
German woman. Let me see what German women are working with.
I'm
I don't
talking
really know
about.
what they look like.
I also have no problem with marrying a Norwegian or something like this. It's basically the same people. Just
Talking about what? Do you guys know Jordan M, the Muslim?
Yeah.
Of course, he's our brother.
Right. Anyway, he was talking about well, he recently got married. You know that.
Yeah.
And then he says his wife wants him to take another wife.
His wife wants him to take another wife.
Yes, because she's getting bored, I suppose.
Well, this is a picture of German woman. Is this
the typical feminists? You see it. I mean, this is also the way it's just like with the dogs or the animals you have, right? Wait,
hold on.
The dogs look a lot like the owner.
Wait, so Jordan M's wife, he said that his wife wants him to take another wife.
Yes, and he doesn't know what to do, but so he bought her a cat.
Oh my God.
That's what he said.
Well, I mean, he must be one of the luckiest guys on earth for his own wife. I mean, be honest, Elrod, is that not every man's dream to have more than one girl and both of the parties agreeing with it?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the basically the low instinctual level, yeah, like a threesome or something, but I see that as degenerate already.
We're having two wives.
Yes, you see that he always thinks about
the low instinctual level.
No,
women, guys.
I view that like a harem. I view that as a form of degeneracy.
It's not a degeneracy, because I'll tell you why. Men are instinctively tribalistic species. And so for a man to want more than one woman is not unnatural. It is actually very, very normal. For a man to be monogamous is actually not normal. And I know this is something that's crazy, what I'm saying, but it's not crazy. In history, even biblical prophets had more than one wife. In Islam, the prophets had more than one wife. Even the kings and the queens, or the kings, had more than one wife. Even if they didn't have more than one wife, they still had mistresses. Because this is what they do. Now, for this idiots like Bayaki saying multiple wives is Islamic tradition, how many European kings had mistresses? It was scandalous, if anything. Like, let's not joke around here. Henry VIII, King, all your King Georges, your King Henrys, your King Richards, your King whatever, they all had mistresses. So.
Well, I don't think anybody's denying that. I think it's just a kind of stable. I mean, most men and women probably want to have sex with more than one person.
When your man is sitting there being forced to be with you, and he is repressing his urges, and he is sitting there depressed, having to limit himself to one person when he could really, come on.
Well, it's also, you have a point there. It would be in line with nature, especially in war times, in like a more.
Well, exactly. I was going to go
pre-civilization, but I also view it like the human can become a greater human being. So, for example, it's also totally natural that men, like men and women, go with the easiest way, okay, to spare energy and so on, because in the past, in the evolutionary past, you have to be very careful with your energy. So you can say it's natural that people are lazy, right? But you have to force yourself in these days where you have all these luxuries
let me
to
ask
get
you this
physical.
about,
So I have to force myself to get physical now. And so I'm willing to force myself also to limit myself to a partner because I just view it as the next level,
because you're
like
lazy.
a
But the
greater.
thing is, let me ask you this: if you could, and you have the opportunity to have one wife or three wives, what would you choose? And it was completely fine. All the three wives were aware of it. If you, as a man, could choose, and you had the choice to have one wife and live with that wife till death do you part, or you
When
have
you
three
ask
wives.
me personally, I would just do it like this. I would make a baby, okay, and then
No. I'm asking
I,
you, one wife or three wives? It's simple.
no. When you say wife, you mean a serious
Paying for their
commitment,
stuff.
spending time with every one of these women. And I would say no. I'm too individualistic. I'm too self-absorbed. I need my free space, right? So I
It's a
can't deal with three
burden.
wives.
But
Yeah,
but
it's a
this is the thing.
burden.
I'll give you my explanation.
When these wives say, okay, you have your free time, just bring us the money or something like this, I will say, okay, no problem. But when it comes to a serious relationship, and I think this is the best way, I think the woman needs a partner most. When I'm talking about in general. I think the best way to live in a stable relationship is not three wives, it's one wife, one man for
No,
everyone. If
because
you
the
want a
thing is,
stable
but this is the thing.
relationship.
You guys want to talk about nation building and preserving your race, but you're there stuck with one woman who might not even want kids, and that's it. You're bound to her, and you're stuck with her. For us as Muslims, having three wives, that's three sets of kids. That's your lineage expanding. Now, I personally would become
Yeah.
a second wife or a third wife under very, very, very specific conditions if the man was wealthy. And when I mean wealthy, I'm not asking him to be like a bloody billionaire, but he is able to provide sufficiently, because you have to be. You have to have a level of money to provide for more than one woman, and especially the kids that come with those 2, 3 women. For me personally, I would see it as a benefit because, like you say, I'm a little bit like you, Elron. I'm very individualistic or independent, so I don't want to constantly be there catering to my man hand and foot. When I get tired, I'll just pass him on to the other wife because men need constant stimulation, and for me, I'm not like that. So I think it would be a benefit to me because, especially as somebody has come out of a marriage, been with somebody for 6 years, men can be extremely, extremely demanding, and I just don't have the time or energy. So, like, instead of him cheating on me or instead of him leaving with me, I could still benefit off of his provision. I could still benefit off of his security, but I would have to compromise me having him all to myself, which, to be honest, for me is not a massive compromise because, again, like when I look at it from a rational perspective, his security and his provision means more to me than our little romantic intimacy moments. Like, men are always going to be sexually stimulate or not stimulate sexually like ready, let's just say. Like, men are always going to want to have sex, so it's not going to be a thing where it's going to ruin the marriage because he will just go to the other wife for that. So I would say it's a mutual exchange that benefits me, that benefits him, and what to do. I think this, because the thing is, when we think of marriage and relationships, we always think about this Western romanticized version. It's all romantic and hunky dory. No, it's not. Yeah, once you live with somebody, once you have kids, like, can you stand to be around that person? Like, is that person? So for me, being a second wife or a third wife, I would obviously see him, regularly, but I wouldn't have to be with him all the time. Because again, I would have the stresses of dealing with the kids. I would have other stresses. And like, that's when I find a lot of women end up breaking down their marriages because their kids become their priority. So they don't have time for the man. And so the man ends up becoming, I don't know, bored or, lacks attention, and he ends up cheating. You can say it's disgusting or you like. I don't know if you're a faggot, Bayaki, yeah, or you're just a simp or you're a cuck. I understand that. But real masculated men need stimulation. Do you get what I'm saying to you? They're not just going to sit there and wait around for their wife until she feels ready. Like, let's be honest, unless you're gay, and I'm being honest, unless you are a gay man and you're not attracted to women, like, am I lying, Elron? I don't know
No.
what it is with, like, it's a European thing, but men need to be stimulated. And if a man is left alone for too long, he's going to look elsewhere. It's simple.
Yeah,
Is that not
if
true,
he,
Elron?
So you're talking in terms of sharing the burden to Beta, sharing the burden of, as a husband, and Elron is basically saying having more than one wife would be a burden for him, even if he could comfortably afford it.
yeah,
It
but
depends.
I
If
think this
Elron has
is
a very good wife,
I'm out of the norm.
one second. If Elron has a very, very good wife who caters to him, submits to him, to his every single need, then he wouldn't have more than one wife. But if he's looking for a German wife, then respectfully, I don't know how German women are made, but let's just say you have your honeymoon moment, everything is fine, and then kids start to arise, and then she starts to become tired, and she hasn't got no more energy for you. She's too busy with the kids, and every time you
No,
come
I
to her,
wouldn't have a problem with that.
you wouldn't have a
I
problem with
would
that.
love that. The only thing, what yes, when I'm with her, then I'm probably so attracted that then there is a lot of sex, yes, but I also need a lot of free speech. I have no problem with, for example, staying away from my wife and don't have sex for a week. No problem. When I see her again, yes, then there's this fire again. But I have no problem with staying away from a wife. I have so many things to do. So, but I'm outside the norm. I think most men are, as you have described
Okay,
them.
then.
But
So I'm not lying. I commend you for that. You can control your urges, which is a good thing.
yeah,
But again, most men, especially with a lot of testosterone, like it will be doing more harm to the man by constantly keeping him waiting, constantly keeping him, at the edge of the bed, hoping that you will change your mind. And the thing is, as somebody has had a child, when you go through those stages as a woman, you don't want to be around your man. You really don't. You're going to neglect him, especially when you have those kids. Your body changes. You're just going to be like, oh, I can't be asked for this. And so what? Am I just going to expect him to sit there and wait? Am I going to expect him to sit there and masturbate every day? Like, let's be serious.
I don't know. Let me think about that. First of all, I wanted to
You
say
can make
I
it
think
pretty
women
anyway.
in general need more attention. I don't know if it's still like this when they have children. I don't know, but my general view is men have much more, hobbies, are into work, are obsessed with work. It's only when they are basically together with the woman then they will be like you have these issues. But women in general, I would say, need way more attention than the men. They constantly need like flattery. You
Yeah,
look
really. So
good. Men don't need such a thing. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe
Well,
I'm
men
outside
prefer
the norm.
dogs than cats, so I think they need they need to feel loved. It's more
for
important
me,
to
like
them.
I said, yeah, I would only get into this arrangement if the man was had a certain level of wealth where he could
Yeah.
provide me security and provision. Because, like, again, if you look at it in a real life, yeah, some women are willing to be with one guy who doesn't give them anything. Yeah, he gives them the bare minimum, and that's it. Or would you rather be with the guy who gives you everything, but yes, he has a second wife? Like, be realistic. Like, this is why women are so emotional, because they're willing to sit there and stick with one guy, right, who treats them like absolute shit, who doesn't provide for them anything, just to say, yes, I've got my guys loyal to me. But on the surface, your situation is shit. Or have somebody who provides for you and gives you everything that you want and more. But yes, he's got a second wife.
I have to think about that. I've never thought about that.
Well, I would look at it like this. I would rather a man who looks after me, pays for my house, gives me all the provisions that I need, in terms of security, household. But yeah, he's got a second. But I'm secured for. I'm safe.
Well, you describe it from a perspective I've never thought about. If that is possible, basically. But I think
And
you
also, I'll give it to you from a
you have a
man's
mindset
perspective.
that is different from the average woman. When I'm looking at a situation where you have basically one man and many, they are calling it open relationship or something like this. These are the most unstable relationships ever.
Well, I'm not
So,
speaking about an unstable relationship. I'm speaking about a marriage here. And also,
uh,
look at it from the man's perspective. let's say the man is a very healthy, a very hardworking man. You know, he's got his own business. You know, he's up there. You know, he's like making a lot of money for his percentage. Why should he have to just settle for one woman? If he, you know, he's earned the right after his hard
I
work. 'Cause,
think that women in general are envious of other women. If the man sleeps,
no,
maybe
'cause again,
the
there are
factor
women who
comes.
think. No. There are women who think like me, who have the same mentality, who understand. You would be surprised. There are many Muslims who are in this situation. Yes, there might be some jealousy that will occur. I concur this, but there have been multiple situations where everyone is in agreement. They actually done a documentary. I don't know if I can send it to you, or you can type this in. It's a Panorama BBC documentary. You could just type in polygamy documentary in UK, and basically it follows these three men. One of them, he's a Jamaican guy, and he's got three wives. And at the time of the documentary, he's only got two, and he's literally about to marry his third. And all of his wives, they chill with each other. They're all like, yeah, we understand the situation. It's all good. Another Moroccan guy, he's got two wives, marries his third. They're all in agreement. They all get the situation. They're like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I know my husband's got another wife, and it is what it is. Like, we're not mad about it, but you have to get to an emotional maturity, because again, I have to look at it from a long-term perspective. Do I
Maybe
settle?
it's a marriage thing that because the only way here you don't have when you have this situation. Basically, it's also outlawed in Germany. I still think that they are not following up that law, but it's basically forbidden here in Germany. And when I'm looking at these relationships where you don't have a contract or like a marriage, then the man doesn't have to provide. So maybe that is why they are unstable. So that the women also are jealous of each other or trying to push the other women out in that scenario.
No, because the thing is, the only
they are
time.
wait a minute, because in that scenario they think, okay, the man only will provide for one woman after all, and then I have to kick out the other woman. Maybe with a contract this could work, but I have to see studies on that. From all that I have seen without that contract is these relationships are, first, they are degenerate, at least when it comes to the West. Okay, they're
No,
like,
because the thing is, look, from an Islamic perspective, if a husband wants to have more than one wife, he has to consult with his first wife. And the second wife who is getting into this arrangement, because remember, the first wife has to accept, and the second wife has to understand her position. So this is a consensual agreement. It isn't something that's, oh yeah, he gets married to a first wife, then he marries two or three behind her back. No. This situation is done where all parties are aware. Like Claire just said, Jordan M's first wife is actively saying, I want to give him a second wife. And that's not strange to happen. There have been many Muslim women who have advocated for their husband to get another wife. Even in this documentary, the one that I just told you about, one of the cases, the woman, she's the one that's saying, we want another wife involved here.
You know what you should do? You should ask Edward Dutton exactly that question. I want to hear his explanation for that, if he has an explanation. Edward
Who is
Dutton. Claire, do you know him? I think Edward Dutton even spoke to some
Hold
of
on,
the
let me
Muslims
just
you're
explain
following.
something to this clown Stanley. Make sure the first wife is bi. This isn't some menage a trois, my friend. Yeah, the women are not interacting with each other. Very, very rarely. It is a man having two wives. The wives are not. There's not some threesome, sick, degenerate stuff that you lot are talking about. Yeah, it's the same thing that your kings and queens did. They were married, but they still had mistresses. They even had children with some of these mistresses. Yeah, because this is the extinct and also for Elron, when it comes to nation building, and you guys sit there and talk about the declining white race because you're not having enough kids. We do this. This is not just for let me just explain the having more than one wife thing very clearly. First of all, the main reason for it is not to do with sex or desires. There are specific conditions to do this. Now, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at one point had 11 wives. All of those wives, except for one, he married for diplomatic reasons, or the fact that they were captured, widows, sorry, or the fact that they were victims of war. There was only one wife that he married because she was beautiful. Other than that, every single wife that he married was to strengthen diplomatic ties. His first wife was 3-timed widow. Most of his wives were actually widows, and he married them to strengthen the ties between his family or his tribe and the other tribes. It was never done for desires. It was never done for sex. His first wife was 15 years older than him. Okay, so that was really the main reason for taking more than one wife, for protection for these women. I'll give you an example. Usually here in the West, a man and woman would be married for 40 years. They got married when they were 20. They've been married, well, let's say 20 years, and now they're both 40. The 40-year-old husband will go behind the back of his 40-year-old wife and go get with the 20-year-old. Once the 40-year-old wife finds about it, she will divorce him, and that's 20 years of marriage gone down the drain. Now, that 40-year-old man, he can still technically move on. He could either carry on with that 20-year-old girl, he could find another one because he's a man. But as for her, she's 40 years old, divorced woman. He's going to take her up. She has less chance of moving on compared to him. But from an Islamic perspective, we wouldn't write this woman off. We would say, no, you can still, we would marry you. Because again, once she divorces that man, she's going to be left without security. She's going to be left without a husband. She's going to be left with, she's going to become very, very, very disadvantaged.
But didn't this example show you that it's not a natural thing for a woman on average? If you don't have an ideology behind it, it is unnatural because the woman, the first instinct is to get divorced.
But this is the thing. It's even in the Christian ideology. So you guys, the Christians believe in Abraham. Abraham had, I think, 2 or 3 wives. Remember, he had Hagar and he had Rebecca. Solomon, King Solomon, is in the Bible. He had many, I think they say 700 wives. Yeah. There are many biblical prophets who had more than one wife. So it's not something that's good. It's just that really, truly, it's a psyops that you lot have been conditioned to be in. Have one partner, and that's it. Be enslaved to that individual for the rest of your life. No one's saying that every Muslim has to have more than one wife, because the Quran says this: marry 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you may be unjust, then only marry 1. So the first statement is marry 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But there is a but. If you fear that you may be unjust, then take 1. So the Quran is telling you to take 1 as well. As much as it's saying you can take 4, you can take 3, you can take 2, you can also take 1. But it puts a limit on how much you can take, which is 4. And again, in a situation of war, many of these women end up becoming widows. What do we do with the widows? What do we do with the widows where their husbands have been slaughtered at war? Do we just leave them by themselves to die, to be single for the rest? Do they not deserve a chance of happiness? Is that label a widow? That's it? Because I realised even in British society, people got angry at Harry Styles for marrying Meghan Markle because she's a divorcee. You know, certain rights have been stripped from people in the royal family from becoming king. So, for instance, King George, Queen Elizabeth's father, before him it was King Edward. King Edward was supposed to be next in line to the throne, but because he married a divorcee, they basically said to him, the royal family said, you either get rid of this woman or you stay with this woman, but you have to abdicate from being king, just because she was a divorcee. And so he abdicated. He chose the woman that he was with, and then King George became king, and then after he died, Queen Elizabeth became queen. So even in so what do we do with these divorcee women? What do we do with these widow women? Is like, for me, the British Western society would say, now that you're a widow, that's it, you're done. You're done. You don't deserve any marriage, you don't deserve anything, you don't.
I can't really give you a good answer because I've never thought about this question. I really would love if you ask Edward Dutton. I think you saw him on one of the Muslim panels at one time that you are following. You should ask him this question. From an evolutionary standpoint, I see that it was like this in the past, that a lot of, the strongest man, the most successful man, they had multiple wives. And from a eugenic standpoint, this is also a good outcome, at least when, of course, everything has extremes, let's say, because at one point, this will lead to basically everyone is somewhat like second degree cousin with each other. So you need to bring in a little bit of
really.
diversity. Not in your case, but in the case of me having an ethno state, okay, and I won't let anyone else come in, basically, more or less. But when I would say yes, the best man. So I don't want this principle would be eugenics from a eugenics point of view. This would even be favorable if the strongest, the most smartest men have more children, and you can achieve that with more wives, right? That
Right.
would be a good outcome. The problem is when it comes from a eugenics standpoint. This is the angle I want to make. Is when some degenerate has multiple wives, okay, then it's a bad outcome, I would say. But I haven't really thought about the stability point of view. You need to ask that Edward Dutton, because maybe he has studies on that. If this is like an average thing that could work and have a stable society with that, and so on.
I mean, my from what I know, from my father's father had 2 wives, as far as I know. But my grandmother only got married to one man, and they had 13 kids. So even for my family, I have grandfathers who had more than one wife, and I have grandfathers who had one wife. There are conditions to this. We're not saying that because you're a Muslim man, you're now entitled to more than one wife. That's not how it works. If anything, if you look at it from a statistic point of view, most Muslim men actually only have one wife. It's usually the very wealthy men, and again, it's almost an act of charity, because let's just say a man got married to a 20-year-old virgin. Okay, fine, but then there was a 30-year-old widow. He would then, out of mercy, take her to be his second wife, because most men would reject her. Most men will say, no, I don't want a 30-year-old widow. You're not a virgin. But he would say, okay, I've still got my virgin, but also I can build a little bit extra with this lady. And again, from a woman's perspective, if I was a 35-year-old widow or divorcee in Britain, I wouldn't stand a chance. Let's be honest, Elron. A 35-year-old or even a 36-year-old. I mean, 36 is not that old. But the thing is, I will be deemed too old for a lot of people. And 36-year-old, I'm still active. I'm still able to do a lot of things. But most of society would say, no, 36. But then, if there was a situation where, okay, he had one wife, but he would bring me into the equation as a second wife, so I'll still have a husband, somebody that loves and cares for me. I would have security. I would have a title of being married, rather than being 35, 36. My chances are limiting, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and that's it. I'm done. I'm going to live the rest of my life by myself. Unless I find some flipping guy that's interested in 35-year-old women. So again, it's favorable for me as a woman to enter this situation.
Yeah, you made a case there. I think I didn't do so well against it.
I mean, look at it, mate. Just look at it, understand it. I mean, I think, and I'm not saying this is from a Muslim thing, but even Andrew Tate makes quite strong arguments for this. But from the man's perspective, he says that, if I'm a man who's, a millionaire, for instance, and I'm making all this money, why should I have to just limit myself to one woman? Why can't I have 2 or 3? And those women will also have a mutually exchange benefit from this situation. I'm a man, I'm grown, I'm full of testosterone. Why should I just limit myself to one lady, and just be sort of limited, So this is just a part of a man's nature. And obviously, me as a woman, I've had to understand that and put my emotions aside. Many women can't do that. They want their man to be loyal. But really and truly, like, these women that think that their men are loyal, those men might be completely internally frustrated. Like, they might be just sitting there thinking, and the thing is, the reason why people will ask men can have more than one wife compared to a woman having, be honest, no woman would want to have more than one partner. It's unnatural. It's not right. Yeah? Like, this is not just an urge that, like, men and women feel. No, most women just want to be with one guy. They don't want to have multiple partners. But men, they could go on having more than one. Like,
But you must provide me some kind of data that shows, okay, I could agree with, should it be allowed that there are the possibilities for this, for example. I would say, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. However, my gut feeling is, if you are in a relationships, and this goes for both sides, if you're serious, you shouldn't share your love with others. That is just, for me, it is unnatural. And you are telling me, okay, for the man it is unnatural to think like this. So my personal view is wrong, and you say for the woman is
I've
the
got
exact
something.
opposite.
I've got
For the
something.
woman is the exact opposite. I have to have data on that. I can't speak to that.
So something says here, humans are now mostly monogamous, but that has been the norm for just the past 1,000 years. Scientists at university colleges believe monogamy emerged so males could protect their infants from other males and ancestral groups who may kill them in order to mate with their mothers. Here, another thing it says, in essence, men are only socially monogamous rather than genetically monogamous. And then here they ask the questions, are humans biologically meant to be monogamous? For humans, monogamy is not biologically ordained. So the only reason why people have become more monogamous is due to society.
So I don't know how to call it. It is basically what I was saying. So socially is. Oh wait, let me. Trieb in English.
Like, this is the thing, bro. They're trying to see how they're trying to change men into women through this transgender stuff. They're also trying to do the same thing with men by restricting them of their natural order.
Instinct, yeah. The biological urge for the man is, of course, to have children, and they have the capabilities of having many children. Yes, but this is only the biological thing, right? That would be like saying, okay, men are only like animals, basically.
No, there's nothing animalistic about having more than one partner for a man.
No, and when you say partner,
man,
what do you mean then? When you referred to basically the biological urge, and that has nothing to do with partnership. This is where I drive the distinction.
There is nothing wrong with a man wanting to mate and preserve his seed and create a lineage.
Yeah, but then the second wife is basically just there for reproduction. The man can't love her.
There have been a scenario where a second wife would be warranted. For instance, a man is married to a beautiful 23-year-old virgin. That's his first wife, and 2 years they're married, and she can't have kids. She's infertile. Now, what should he do as a man? Should he now break her heart and divorce her and say, yeah, you're useless? Or should he keep her, continue to love and cherish her and give her the security? But also, he wants to create a lineage. So he marries a second wife. But again, that second wife, because the thing is, in Islam, there are conditions. So in Islam, you are told to treat all wives fairly. So if you get something for one wife, you should get the same for the other wife. Again, what you're missing out is there are specific conditions. Nowhere in Islam does it say that you should take a wife just to simply breed with her. There are actually segments on Islam about intimacy, about how it is encouraged to actually please your wife, because a lot of these some Asian men, Middle Eastern men, they have this weird cultural mindset where sex is just only supposed to be about them and the woman's just supposed to lie there, wait for you to finish. That is completely wrong. Like, that is not how it's supposed to be. There are certain mindsets like this where it's just like, it's all about the man. The woman is blasphemous for the woman to feel pleasure. That's completely wrong. It's this two-way symbiotic relationship where both of them are supposed to feel pleased, both of them are supposed to be honored. When you get married to a second,
I suppose that they're just worried about the woman, having sex with another man and then, passing the children of the offspring of her lover, as a husband. But you say this about what you say about polygamy made me think of Henry VIII. And,
Yeah,
and
but
I
Henry
think,
VIII
you know,
wasn't
the
even
other
really
thing
in
I
a
want,
polygamous marriage. He married one, then divorced one. He didn't marry them all at the same time. But even then, he is still a good example because he had a first wife, and the reason why he ended up taking a second one is because he divorced the first wife because he wanted more. And then after she went, he wanted more and more and more till he married.
well, he wanted a son, basically. So his first and second wife couldn't give him a son.
okay,
Only his
now I
third
have
Yeah,
a
but
wife.
even
flaw.
after he had, no, but he had a son with Jane Seymour. I think that was his third wife. Jane Seymour.
Mhm.
I think Jane Seymour died, and he still
Yes,
took on
in
4 or
childbirth.
5 more afterwards, even though he still got his son.
Yeah, but they weren't for, you know, it was like, well, you have to have a wife, and it's like, and then
No,
he didn't like any.
you have to be very clear with this situation. He was married to Catherine of Aragon. He divorced her to be with Anne Boleyn because Anne Boleyn persuaded him to be with her. So he didn't even give Catherine of Aragon a chance to even produce a son. He just divorced her.
She
Then he
was
got with.
already too old. She was already too old. She was in her
All right, well,
40s, and
okay,
she
fair enough.
only had well, Bloody Mary.
All right, that's fair
Here,
enough. Then he
okay,
went. One
I
second,
will
one
go
second.
with,
1 second. Then he went with Anne Boleyn. She obviously done what she'd done. He executed her. Then he went with Jane Seymour. She died. Then he continued to still go on with more women.
Yeah, well, Anne of Cleves, you know, he actually didn't like her. He just saw a picture of her, and then she came before
But
him,
bearing
and
in mind, Claire, he did have mistresses as well at the same time. Before he actually got with Anne Boleyn, he was actually with Anne Boleyn's sister. And whilst he was with Catherine of Aragon, he still had mistresses. So those are 8 wives, including the how many mistresses he
well,
also had
6.
whilst being married to them.
Okay. Okay, but
okay,
anyway, what I'm saying was that the bloodiness of the English Reformation would have been well unnecessary.
Claire, let me have
We
my
had been.
comeback here. Let me have my comeback because
Go on.
I think this is the first time I really what hadn't had a good answer in a debate on a certain topic. I think I have one now. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Go on.
I'm thinking of how many men percentage-wise would that even be an option for? I would say it's only the elite, right?
Who can afford
Because
more than one?
because it is my understanding, and it's these R versus K strategy, right? You have to provide and this is also going into eugenics. You have to provide the children with the best you can, and the children need a father. We are seeing that with fatherlessness. They are going way more in prison. They are doing worse in school and so on. So it would be irresponsible, first of all, if you can't achieve children and you have many children, like we have, especially in the black community, right? And this is an irresponsibility, and it will have an effect on the overall society, right? It's a burden for the
It
overall
will cause
society.
degeneracy.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
sorry.
the
This is this
degeneracy. So this
European
what I'm
mindset.
saying is, in modern society, right, an average man, even though he's very capable, yet now the cost of living are so high that from the European perspective, right,
Exactly, from the
the
European
average
modern
man,
perspective.
even the middle class now, can only achieve maybe 3 children, okay? Everything else is a burden. So to have more than 3 children is a societal burden. So this model would, in the West today, would
Yeah.
only be achievable for the elite, for very rich
Yeah.
people. So we are talking about a small percentage, and when it comes to that, I wouldn't even have a problem with that, because from a eugenics standpoint on, I see that the elite must reproduce more, especially our elite women. They have less and less children because they go to university and so on. So this would be my perfect answer for that. It wouldn't be a
I hear what
model
you're
for the
saying.
average people. It would be
Yeah.
irresponsible, because first they can't achieve it. It would be a burden for society, and second, the fatherlessness. That the father can't spend as much time with their children. They have, especially when it comes to the boys, he has to spend a lot of time with them to raise them properly. It can't be just a woman, because then they will become feminine. That is something that we don't want. As long as these kind of factors are provided in your model, I would be okay with that.
Okay, let me respond. So, like you clearly highlighted, the European modern environment, of course, because it's a capitalistic environment, it's a consumerist environment. I mean, normal families who even have 1 or 2 kids cannot manage to raise their children in this society because of the burden of constantly having to provide. But in an Islamic framework, our society wouldn't have these burdens. For instance, like poverty. I'm saying in a perfect Islamic society, how if the system was run to the T, every Muslim is supposed to pay 2% of their earnings to charity, zakat. So imagine 1.8 billion people paying 2% of their earnings to charity. Could you imagine how much that would be? Like,
you know what we are paying in taxes right now
Right.
in the West. So we are funding actually. You could provide. Doesn't really matter. If I'm like on social welfare at the moment, I could have many wives because the state is funding me and
okay,
my
but
children.
you're not listening to my point though. The point
And
is
this
what I'm
is
saying.
irresponsible. It would be a dysgenetic effect here.
Okay, let me just explain that what I'm saying. In a Muslim society, that 2% will be paid into zakat. Zakat would be distributed to the poor, to the society. So men wouldn't have to work as hard as they would have to this day and age. I mean, I work as a nurse, and sometimes I do 14 to 15 hour shifts. 14 to 15 hour shifts. That's how much
crazy,
in
yeah.
demand the service is. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Because not enough people want to do nursing, and so they're very understaffed, which requires people to double their workload. But that's again because of capitalism. Because the reason why a lot of people don't want to become nurses is because they can become OnlyFans. They can fucking become a TikTok influencer and get paid double the money. Why the hell would I want to study for months just to become a nurse to earn bloody £9.50 an hour? Do you get what I'm saying to you? So the system is rigged. So of course it wouldn't work in this society. But in an idealistic Muslim society, people wouldn't be having to work this much because our market would be
Why
very
can you
much
show me this Muslim society?
Well, it doesn't exist this day and age, unfortunately,
Yeah, okay.
in its totality. No.
And I think in the past it wasn't also the case. It wouldn't be before capitalism, let's say, okay? Let's say, I don't know, when Europe still had like kingdoms and so on, right? You wouldn't see the average people back then couldn't afford
were.
multiple.
sultans.
No,
Yeah, but the
they
thing
couldn't
is, look,
afford multiple children or multiple. And when they did, it was mainly basically why they had many children. It was because many of them died, and they need basically
bro, my
when
grandmother
they
in
grow old,
Algeria,
they need a provider because
my
they.
grandmother in North Africa had 13 children. They all lived a very beautiful life. And my grandmother was probably born in like my mum was born in 1954. So my grandmother was probably born in like, I don't know, 1930 or 1920 or some shit like that. So it was much, nearly 100 years ago. And they got on with it. My father's father had 2 wives in Iraq. Again, another very poor country. They got on with it. It's all about how you deal with it. Because the thing is, sometimes when you guys speak about provision, you speak about extreme materialistic things. Like this day and age, what kids want, what kids deem as providing for them, is getting them an Xbox and getting them Nike shoes and all this extra bollocks.
Yeah,
We're not
agree with
like
that. Yeah.
So it's the Western mindset, like the Muslim. Like, I never grew up with all these things, but I was still provided for. Don't get it twisted. Like my dad would come home with a big, massive watermelon, and that was the equivalent of him buying us a PlayStation. I swear to God, when my dad used to come in with a big bottle of watermelon or some pomegranate, we would be like, "Oh my God, yeah!" What? Like we would be so excited. And I've got 4 sisters. My father had 5 girls. 5 girls. You get what I'm saying to you? And provided for us. Like it's all about how you deal with it. I know this won't work in the European mindset because the European world is a fast-paced world. The economy is fast-paced. It will be hard. People are struggling to do it with 1 or 2 kids. Do you get what I'm saying to you? But in an Islamic society, it would be much more different. This is why a lot of the Western people are having affairs rather than having more than one wife. They're having affairs. They're cheating on their wife. These guys are trying to get cheap thrills because they barely even see their partner, for goodness sake. Most of the Western marriages is he goes to work, she goes to work. Oh, we don't have time for kids. Once they do have time for kids, the woman ends up resenting the husband for being a burden by giving her a child. She wants to chase her career. Why am I now stuck at home looking after this kid? So she goes by any means to not look after the kid and get back into work. And it's just a shitty situation. And then he gets frustrated. The man's frustrated with all this burden. So he ends up looking elsewhere.
At least we can agree on that basically this is not, at least in the even in the Islamic world, this is not a model that is for the average everyday people, because it would be not affordable even in the of the Islamic countries today.
Yeah,
You
but I
couldn't.
need to search the statistics now. How many people have more than one wife? How?
I agree that the average day stuff, right? Like having a house is now much more expensive than in the past. This has to change. Like the average
Yeah.
day stuff, like food. The
See, it
average.
says only 2% of the global population lives in polygamous households, and in the vast majority of the countries. Let me see. I actually need to research this myself. Polygamy is rare throughout most of the world. In the US, today, people in the US are rarely prosecuted for living with multiple romantic partners. I don't care about the US. So most of the places that have, in some African countries, sizable minorities of people live in polygamous households. So most of them are Muslim countries, yeah, like Gambia, Nigeria. Yeah, Nigeria actually has quite a lot of polygamous marriages. Polygamy is most often found in sub-Saharan Africa, where 11% of the population live in arrangements that include more than one spouse. Most of the countries that permit polygamy have Muslim majorities, and the practice is rare in many of them. Fewer than 1% of Muslim men live with more than one spouse in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iran, and Egypt.
Yeah. So
Polygamy
what
is
are
also
we really
legal in Saudi
talking
Arabia.
about? It's just like I said. It's not the average. It's an outlier basically. It's mostly for elite people. Let's say that. For the leaders. And I wouldn't have anything against that.
Yeah, but the
But
thing is, what is the listen?
it would be false, basically. This
What
is
is
why
the
I have a
difference?
problem.
But the thing is, you don't like the idea. The way I'm saying it to you, having more than one wife. But what is, you actually find men having more affairs than you will find men
Yeah.
having more than one wife. But what is similar about both instances is that each man is taking more than one spouse because it's part of his nature. So what is the difference between a man having two wives and a man having one wife but having a side girl or an affair with another woman? Men are doing it all the time, but they're just not doing it in the correct framework.
Well, the other thing is what you need to provide is basically you say it would make a difference between seeing it as an affair and then having like
There's no
marry
level of
her,
deception involved.
and you would tell me that the woman sees it in another way because now he's marrying her and she doesn't like get jealous or something like this.
But
I
again,
can't see that.
but 1 second, for a second, most of the situations where a woman becomes a second wife, like I said earlier, she understands the situation. Like you wouldn't become a second wife.
But how many women would see this situation?
I
wouldn't
just
have.
said to you earlier, Claire just said Jordan M's first wife is looking for a second wife.
That must be an outlier. I can't.
The documentary that I told you about includes women. This is a documentary of at least 4 Muslim men who all have more than one wife, and in 2 of the instances, the wives are the ones who are suggesting to have a second wife.
Maybe I am a feminist after all. I don't know.
Maybe you are, my friend. And the thing is, Andrew Tate actually, look at Andrew Tate and the people that he speaks to. There's even another woman who's not a Muslim. She's a white English lady, as far as I'm concerned. She's into Bitcoin, for goodness sake. And she even makes the same argument. She says, to be honest, this is a man's nature. I'll try and send you the podcast. Her name is Leela Haybert. It's a podcast that he did recently with this woman in Miami, Andrew Tate and this woman. And she says it in the beginning of the podcast, like, I don't mind if my man had another woman as long as he's providing for me and looking after me, because, again, the loss is not greater than the gain. Okay, yes, he's got another woman, but he still comes back to me. He still provides for me. And let's say for a wealthy man, he still gives me 20K a month. He's paying for my $1 million house. He's paying for my car insurance. I'm getting all these things, and I'm going to sit there and complain about the fact that he's got another woman whilst I'm gaining all these things. Or do I lose all of that and lose the provisions, lose the security, lose the luxuries, but I end up with a guy that works in bloody McDonald's 9 to 5, and that's that.
Well, maybe it's the incentives. We need to have studies on this. Maybe it's the incentives basically saying, first of all, if the woman divorces the man after an affair, she gets what is the word, like she will not have nothing here in the West with the way the system is set up, but she will actually benefit from this, right? She will still get custody and so on. So maybe she's divorcing him because of that, so it's easier.
Yeah, but why should the man have to give half of his wealth to her anyway? What's made her earn all of his wealth? Even that's just BS.
No, all I'm saying is this woman, and in that case, doesn't have your mindset, right? And maybe it's also like, if you have a setup from that system that you are describing, is the woman knows if she gets.
All right, let me ask you something.
If she get divorced, does she
Hold
then
on.
get custody?
Somebody
in
brought
your
a very
system?
good example that I should have actually used earlier. So somebody in the chat said almost 5% more women than men in the EU. And we actually do have this situation. There are more women than men in the world. So let's just say if every man took a woman, there will still be a larger single women out there. What are those women to do? Now, for instance, somebody like myself, who's 25, it is very, very difficult to find a partner in my age group. So then I'm forced to look elsewhere, men in their 30s. Most men in their 30s are actually taken, and the 30-year-old men who are not taken are usually just bums and weirdos, because at least by 30 you should be married. So women in their 20s this day and age are finding it extremely, extremely hard to find husbands or partners, because most of the men our age are just still very, very, very immature. Even at 25 years old, it's very hard to find a very mature 25-year-old man. So I have to start looking older. Most women, can you be quiet, please? Most women tend to look for men older than them, but most of the men older than them are already established. They're already established. They've already got their wife. They've already got their kids. But in a realistic situation, those men in their 30s who are established would take someone like me as a second wife.
You sound more like a feminist.
Which is what you want, in a way.
How do I sound like a feminist?
By what you just said in the beginning of your statement, simply by addressing that most men who choose not to be married or settle down by the time they're 30 and above, right, there's something wrong with them. That sounds like a feminist statement.
So are you telling me a man can go his life until 30 years old and not be married?
Okay.
Not have a partner?
When do you think a man is most financially stable, right? Do you think it's going to be... all right, hold on. Do you think it's going to be in his 20s, his 30s, or his 40s?
In his 30s.
All right, I disagree. I think it's going to be the older he is, the more financially stable he's going to be.
So you're telling me he has to wait all the way till he's 40 to be unmarried, to be... What, is he going to be masturbating all the time till he's 40?
Well, I don't know about the men that you hang around, but, end of the day, when it comes down to it, I don't know what kind of men you associate yourself with.
Let me tell you something, yeah? Don't come on here trying to get slick with me, you understand me? Yeah, we're having a very serious conversation. I know you're very low IQ, so you literally just lowered the conversation to ad hominems and stupid stuff. So if you're going to contribute appropriately, contribute. If not, then you can piss off.
You mentioned masturbation, nobody else here. All right. So
I asked you a question. Don't tell me about, I don't know what men you hang around with.
Well, you mentioned masturbation, right? So obviously you threw the dig out first.
Right, you can fuck off, blood. I don't even want to chat to you. I don't even like you. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, he is a perfect example, actually. A 33-year-old man who's balding at the top of his head. I don't know what's going on. He's there in his house drinking E&J every single night. That's why he's triggered. That's why he's giving me mouth, because he's in his 30s. He's got nothing to show for it. He's got absolutely nothing to show for it. So the thing is, women in their 20s are looking for older men, more mature men. Those mature men most likely are going to be married and established. Any man that's in his 30s that's not married, what have you been doing your whole life? I have to question that. How are you 30 and you've got no wife, no nothing?
Well, let me come from just another angle. I think the first angle after my comeback was very good. I have to clap myself on the shoulder. Let me come from another angle. Do you think that a woman has basically the right to have a man?
Does a woman
Nobody
have a
has
right
a
to have a
right.
man?
Nobody has a right to get married.
All
And
right.
we know they don't.
Because it sounded a lot to me like it was an emotional argument, right? Like imagine this, let's say 35-year-old woman wouldn't get a man. So what? I mean, with your example, you would have the same kind of thing with men, especially when it comes more prevalent, right? If many men have like many women, a lot of men would not have a woman. So you have the same kind of thing that you expressed your.
There is plenty of women to go around. If every man got a woman, there will still be millions of single women out there. Even if they were to marry 2 of all of these women, there will still be plenty of women out there. Because the population there is more women than men.
Yes, you're right, but it's only in most countries. I looked it up like a half year ago or something, and because I was interested in how the population demographic change because of the migrant crisis, because I saw mostly men coming over, right? And in most countries, it's basically 51 to 49%. So we are talking about 2% difference in most countries. In the overwhelming majority of the countries, some countries even lower. It's like a 0.5% difference. So what you're saying is that only 0.5 to maybe 3% maximum of men can have 2 wives.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you were saying. I was just doing something. Say that again.
I'm saying that the female population is only 1 to 2% over the male population in the overwhelming majority of the countries.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a small example of how there is overwhelmingly more women than men. So women are always going to be disadvantaged when it comes to finding a partner, because most men are either, taken, or they're most likely to be taken. So, and then they have less options to choose from in terms, because the thing is, men have more options to choose from in terms of women than women have to choose from men. Like, if women don't get the one that she wants, then she's stuck with the undesirable options. So, for instance, someone like myself, let's just say I wanted a self-established 33-year-old man, and I find one. Oh, he's married. He's got 2 kids. He's a no-go zone. So now I'm left with the undesirable 33-year-old man who's got no kids, who's never been married, who's still going through some sort of midlife crisis. What am I to do?
Well,
because I believe most 30-year-old men between the age of 30 onwards, or even 31 onwards, would be married by now, would be established by now. If they're not, like this little Waste My Night Triller, we know what Triller's like. He's a 30-year-old man, comes online drunk every day, just chatting absolute bollocks, hasn't got anything to show for it. Like, these are the options.
But you make it out to be like all women are good and only a small percentage of men are good. So what I'm hearing here is that women have way too high of a standard. It's normally good because it's good for eugenics. But what I'm saying is men should also have standards.
Oh, men do. Okay,
there's a lot of stupid
men most likely
and
want
undesirable women, and these women don't deserve a man, especially a man of standard.
Right. So most men want a younger woman. Most men want younger women. So that leaves a lot of the older women to be very disadvantaged. Most men want women who are virgins. Most men want women who are fertile. So again, it also becomes difficult from the man in their perspective. Not a lot of girls in the West this day and age are virgins. I mean, let's be honest. Not a lot of the women in the West, even though they're fertile, want to have kids either. So it's a problem from both standards. Don't get I'm not just speaking from a woman's standard as well. Like a lot of women my age, they wouldn't dare go for a guy in their 30s. They're like, oh, he's too old. I want somebody more around my age. Like these conversations are happening all over the internet as we speak, and I've heard different varying opinions, and a lot of women might disagree with me and say, oh, why would you want to go for a 30-year-old guy? You know, he's too old. I want somebody more relatable. I personally would like to go for someone older than me because he's more mature. He's like, especially the guys that were, I look at it like this. I was born in 97. A lot of the guys that would be 30 now were born in mid-80s, late 80s. So they are coming from a different generation. They're not growing up in this degenerate... They didn't grow up in this degenerate generation that a lot of these young kids are growing up in now. So they still have that old school mentality within them, just a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, imagine growing up in the 80s.
They're right on the verge. Yeah, it's
exactly. You get where I'm coming from. So they're not completely indoctrinated or modernized or have this like weird way of thinking. So that is a perfect generation. And I'm literally just on the iceberg. Born in 1997, grew up in the 2000s, but these guys would have grew up in the 90s where things were pretty, you know, not as bad. They were bad, but not as bad as they are now. So I'm just speaking from my perspective. Many people might disagree, but like I said, as a 25-year-old girl, I would never ever go with anyone my age. It's just impossible. I just couldn't. I need somebody to be emotionally, mentally mature than me, like much more mature than me. I really feel like I'm already mature as it is. And to have a guy my age, I don't want to be more mature, more educated than the person that I'm with. Like, I can't respect you that way. So therefore, it has to be somebody older. And most of the guys that are older are married, are already established. So therefore, the only options that I have are very, very limited. It's going to be these 30-year-old weirdos like Triller.
Yeah, well, I could answer tough shit. So
it's not tough shit because like
it's
so
a
you're
game.
basically saying that we should settle. You're basically saying that I should settle and just deal with what I've got.
I have standards. You know, I would never say that.
Everyone has to have a level of standards.
Yeah,
it's not wrong. I find it when women have standards, people get annoyed about it. But men have 101 standards, and it's like, well, he's a man. He should be allowed to choose. He should be allowed, like. But I wanted to ask Claire, like, Claire, what are your thoughts on this, Claire, from an older woman's perspective? Are you there, Claire? Claire?
Yes.
Yeah, we just wanted to ask you about your perspective as an older woman. You know, what do you think about this?
I've just come back into the room, so on what particularly, polygamy?
No, we were talking about obviously me as a 25-year-old having to go for somebody older than me.
It makes sense. I always found older men more attractive than men who are my contemporaries.
Yeah, but I was also of course. But I was saying that the reason why I would do that is because most men who are older than me would already be established.
You have a very good reason for that. But I would say that was always the case for a large proportion of females.
Yeah, most women want to go with older men, and most older men want to go with younger women.
In opposite to polygamy, you have a point there. The other stuff, I think you have a good narrative. I brought up some good narratives, I think. Now, what I want to know is what's the data behind it? What's the science behind it?
Why what data? What data are you looking?
Because it's important to structure a society, okay? what works, what doesn't work, what should be the incentives, what shouldn't be. If you, for example, promote now time to in a classroom to promote this kind of model, and polygamy is not the right word, because polygamy could mean also being a degenerate. What you're talking about is marriage, basically. Has what is the Islamic name for that?
Marriage. That's it.
Just marriage. Okay, so it's multiple marriage.
No,
then. Okay.
Mutta is a Shia practice. That's nothing to do with us at all. It's just called marriage. Having more than one wife. It's just marriage.
Okay, but you are basically, so what I'm saying is, it's like in the West we normally have one model. It was heavily promoted and so on. It was in our culture. Now
No,
the
that's
left
a lie,
says
because
the left says this is oppressive. This is whatever. And now we have all these thousands of other models. Okay, so for me to say is, it is degrading my model, right? And you better have a good reason for it. I think you have much better reasons than for all these leftist models for that. But still, even if I promote now 2 models, you would also say it is fine to have only one partner, right?
What I'm saying is monogamy is still the standard which we agree with. But you could also do this under special circumstances. What I'm saying is this is not the norm in terms where
but the norm would be more this model, okay, the idea, okay, that you should be open for that. So that would contradict my model, what I view. So I would say is, you better have a very good reason and have data behind it for me to invest in this idea, which could be more destructive to the society than my model.
Look, a situation would be like this, yeah. Elron, you got married to your 24-year-old wife, yeah. You're married, you're happy, and then this woman who's in her 30s, she's just been widowed by her husband. He's died miraculously. You could take her as a second wife.
Yes.
You know, her husband's dead. She's, she's no.
But this is allowed, and this is normal in European societies.
Is it?
If your former wife is dead, of course you can have.
No, I'm saying at the
wife.
same time. No, I'm saying that you're already married to a 24-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And you've been married to her for a year or two, and then you meet this other woman who's just her husband's just died. And then you take her as your second wife.
No, I don't know. I feel that is alien to me.
No, you'll be helping that lady.
I would help her without marrying her.
No, you'd be giving her status by marrying her.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I would say it would degrade my status and the status of my wife.
How would it degrade your status? You're a man with 2 women.
It would mean that you're a man who can afford.
People would see that as people would see me as basically being a man whore. That
no, because that's proper married wives.
And not being, I don't know. It's alien to me.
Would you like to marry Zubaydah?
Look, that's you. I'm not saying that that's if that's what you choose, that's what you choose. But again, most men are polygamous by nature. Like I said, the only reason why people are monogamous now is because of society. But genetically, men are polygynous beings. But what we're saying from an Islamic perspective is that don't abuse this polygyny. Don't have multiple affairs. And a man whore is a man that every single night or every weekend he's shagging different women and has no respect for them. We're talking about a wife here, and there are conditions to be a wife. So, for instance, in Islam, when you get married to a woman, you have to give her a dowry. That applies to every single wife. You get married to the first wife, you give her, I don't know, £1,000. The next wife, you do exactly the same thing. Here, £1,000. Here's your accommodation. Here's your provisions. You give her the absolute rights of a wife. You treat her exactly how you would treat your first wife. She's not even your second wife. She's your wife. We really and truly shouldn't even say this is my first, this is my second, this is my wife. That's it. That's my wife. And the wives don't even have to come in contact with each other. The husband can stay with the first wife for 2-3 days. Okay, then he can stay by himself for a bit, then go stay with the other wife for a couple of days. Spread his time equally, because again, depending what type of woman you are, you don't want to be with your partner every single day, every second, sometimes you want, what's that saying, Claire? Distance makes you grow fonder of the heart, or something like that.
Yes, distance makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah,
Yes.
but why distance? And then when I need my time, my distance, I'm not thinking, okay, now I have to go to my other wife or something.
No, it doesn't
I
work
will
like
do I don't know, go golfing, or going out with the boys, something like
Yeah,
this.
of course. But the thing is, look, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I think he married one wife and didn't even actually sleep with her, because again, the actual concept of marrying more than one wife is for protection. So let's just say, for instance, a woman, her husband got killed in battlefield and she's distressed, she's grieving for 3-4 months. You don't touch that woman. Even Islamically, you leave her alone. You don't go to her and say, yes, you're my wife, you have to have sex now. No, but she still gets, for the woman's perspective, like Claire said, she gets the status of being married. And especially in Arabian culture, once you know a woman is married, she's off limits. You don't go to this lady. You respect her honor. She has security, because again, if a woman's husband he gets widowed, he dies, she has no one to provide for her. That's it. Her source of provision is gone. So at least while she gets married to this second husband, even though he's not sleeping with her because she's grieving, let's just say, for instance, she still gets provided for, because that is part of the condition.
Well, we have
One second. Let me just say one last thing. The Quran clearly says man is the protector and the provider for women. This is the man's main duty. If he is not providing and protecting her, he is disobeying God.
And she doesn't have to listen to him.
Yes. Even the Prophet. One second. I'll give you an example. There was a wife. She went to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and she said, "O Prophet, my husband is not providing for me. He's not giving me what's mine." The Prophet said, "Go to his place and take what is owed to you, nothing more." The Prophet Muhammad instructed her to go and take the wealth that she is owed. This is a big thing in Islam. If a man is not providing for you or giving you security, you're allowed to divorce him. So that's why it takes a specific type of man to enter this arrangement. If a man can equally provide for his wives, equally give them security, that's a top man. This is why there's no one like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the only men that can do this day and age have to be a certain type of man.
I think we have exchanged our arguments. We are running in circles now. It was a very nice debate. You should ask once again for Edward Dutton. Maybe he has spoken about with some of the Muslim panels he was on before. Maybe he has an interesting point of view on this. Yeah, once again, I think we have exchanged
He does talk about Islam.
Elron wants 2 wives. He's just trying to act all shy. I mean, Elron,
No.
beautiful German women.
I'm honest. I'm always honest.
Be honest.
He's a little bit embarrassed with talking to 2 women who are in favor of polygamy.
Look, when it comes to such important things like reproduction and marriage and so on, I'm not only thinking about myself, I'm always thinking about society, and I'm always thinking about it from a eugenics point of view. So it doesn't matter what I want, what my instinct wants, or something like this. It doesn't
You're repressing your
matter
nature
to
as a
me.
man. Why are you repressing yourself?
I'm not oppressing myself. Even if I were, I generally have this feeling when I'm in a relationship, another woman is simply out of discussion. It doesn't occur to me to have this. and if then it's only like this biological instinct. It's not because I want to have a relationship with her. This is just like for me. This is then just like a toy or something. It's not. like a destiny
So if you
together
had
with
the
someone.
option of having two beautiful German women as your wife, or one average-looking German woman as one wife, you would choose the average-looking one-woman German wife.
Yes.
Fair enough. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, because it's my biological. I would grant you this. My biological instinct, my sexual drive, would tell me, yes, of course, this is a great thing and everything like this. Okay, but no, when I'm thinking about other stuff, like then this biological
Okay, let
urge
me ask you this then: if you were a
goes away
wealthy,
from me, because I would say two women. One woman is sometimes enough. Okay, she could be a bit noisy and so on. She doesn't allow me to go with the boys or something like this. Okay,
this
so
is
I have to
hilarious.
put her in her place. This one woman alone. Okay, and now I have to deal with two women. No,
Okay, what
no.
if you were a millionaire then? Let me ask you: if you were a millionaire, would you then
Yeah,
consider
if
it?
I've look, then I would say, but then it wouldn't be like a relationship. Then I would be just like a
Visiting.
selfish, like, I don't know. Then I would just be there, have my fun, and then leave again. This is something else. This is not a
Yeah, look, to be
relationship.
honest, I'm gonna say this in your defense: it's definitely a different cultural mindset, and you know, someone from Europe, Germany, I can understand why this is completely alien to you. But one thing that you have admitted, that all men, regardless of where you're from, is they have this biological instinct to want more, to want
Yes.
more than one woman. It would be very rare, unless you're gay, to decline having two women as your wives.
Debater, I must tell you what this
But my
Muslim woman.
soul says something else, and the soul is
I'll
higher.
give over.
The soul is higher than this animal instinct. You have to listen to your heart and to your soul as well. And I would say I even made a compelling case of why, in most cases, in the average, and I'm always talking about the average. I'm not talking about the outlier. Okay, this is what we are doing all the fucking time. I'm saying, okay, you can make exception for the outliers, but what you should preach to the people should be what's best for the average. And I think that I made a better case, even though you made a compelling narrative at some point, that the average,
No, but
it
your
would be the
compelling
best
case is only
model to
based on your
preach to the
environment.
people, find a stable partner, find a good stable partner. It's better than having the dream of having multiple wives or something. And so on. For all the cases that I brought up, like
I'm not
responsibility,
saying
the
every
money
man
to
should have more than one
provide, and
wife,
so
but
on
there
and
is
so on.
nothing wrong with
It's
him
also
having more than one
for
wife.
most of the women, I would say, still, I haven't seen any data, and I myself don't have data. I would say for most women, it is also for her psychological well-being better that the man decides, no,
But
you are
I've
my
already given
only
you
one,
examples of
because I
women who
can't
are
think
willing to accept. Hold
from a
on,
man's perspective. Okay, I can't
but this
think
is what you're
of
not
my
understanding. I've
woman
already brought you
cheating on me
examples,
if
Elron, of
if
women who are
my
willing to
woman,
engage
okay,
in this situation. So you can't say for the woman's psychological, depending on the type of woman. I've already said to you for the third time, there are women who are willingly wanting
yeah,
to be
but I'm
involved in this.
saying these are outliers. Just like you will find
Not
men that
outliers.
are fine with like this open relationship where the woman has like
All right,
also a
I just brought you a
partner.
He
statistic,
doesn't
yeah?
want more than one wife. That's what he's saying.
1 second, Claire. I brought you a statistic where 2% of the world practices polygamy. That 2% probably includes thousands and millions. Are you telling me those thousands and millions of people are outliers? Because
Yes,
those people,
because it's
how can
only
they be outliers
2%.
when there are millions of people engaged in it?
Yes, because it's only 2%.
So those 2% of people are still millions, though.
Yeah, but once again, I'm not what I'm preaching to my people. Maybe you can have. Look, I don't have. I said it in the middle of the debate. I said, yes, you can have outliers. I shouldn't have laws against that.
Jen Wallace, I'm sorry, you have to provide that data because we've already established that 2% of the world is involved in polygynous relationships, and most of them are from sub-Saharan Africa. I doubt they have studies and statistics on what's going on in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, I doubt that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't really know. And you could make a
It's a
point.
survival strategy.
Let me play devil's advocate. You could say, okay, now the Western world, for example, as an example, is basically social engineered. It's in their culture, right? But if they come to their senses, then the percentage of the natural drive would increase. Let's say, and then out of the population of 2%, it would become maybe 3 to 4% of the world population. This is still an outlier.
Yeah, because of the way that the world is constructed, my friend. If you look at it thousands of years ago, it was completely different. And I have to add in, and I know this doesn't help my case, but I have to add in the marriages of more than one wife and the mistresses that many of these people had as well. And the only reason why I'm adding that is just to enhance my argument on men are mostly inherently polygynous, whether they have more than one wife or they have more than one sexual partner or mistresses.
But if you ask the man, right, who cheated, if he feels guilty,
oh, come off it, mate.
They
Barely.
would say yes. They would
really?
No, yes. They would hide it from their wives. Otherwise, it wouldn't be cheating, right? They could be open with their wives.
They might have an open marriage. They might have an open relationship, or the wife deliberately, ignores it. But I just detect, Elron not wanting to legalize polygamy. Is that your position?
Yes, but only with. Yes, I wouldn't have a problem with that, as long as it is the elites doing that. And it's not used in the social welfare system. So right now we have this phenomena where it's unfortunately it's a Muslim phenomena that many Muslims will have 2 to 3 wives here. And
using the welfare.
Yeah, using the welfare
Okay,
system.
of course that shouldn't be allowed. I mean that's obviously wrong. You should only take as many wives as you can afford.
Yeah,
right?
I would say it shouldn't be outlawed, but it also shouldn't be promoted because it's alien to the Germans. The Germans, even back in Rome, right? I think who was it? Tacitus, I think, was speaking about that. That the Germans were, only having one wives all their lives. So it's in our genetic. It was before Christianity. That it must have something to do with the German genetic. And look, it is this capitalist system or even Christianity, okay?
Oh, you can't hear me.
How much of the population is capitalist?
Hold on, can you hear me? Can you hear 1 second?
Yeah.
Aaron,
we can hear
hold
you.
your horses. Claire, 1 second, please. I have to read this out, so that people can get understanding, because I don't like to just speak of my opinion. This is Islam we're speaking about here, yeah? So this is the Quranic verse that tells about giving more than one wife. So it says, if you fear that you should not be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you should not be able to deal justly with them, then only one. Now, it says, it is believed these verses were revealed after the Battle of Uhud, in which many Muslim men were killed, leaving widows and orphans. Thus, many argue that these verses have been revealed because of Allah's concern for the welfare of women and orphans who were left without husbands and fathers who died fighting for the Prophet and for Islam. It is a verse about compassion towards women and their children. It is not about men or their sexuality. In the second part of the verse, the Quran states, but if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only one. If a man cannot deal justly with more than one wife, then he must marry only one. It is clear that this quote was revealed out of compassion towards women and not as a means to please men's male sexuality, which is a common modern interpretation of such verses. Putting the verses regarding polygyny into the broader Quranic context by examining the nature of marriage in Islam helps us understand them. So marriage is more than just a solemn covenant. However, the Surah 30 verse 21 stating, "And amongst his signs is this, that he created for you mates from among yourselves, that you may dwell in tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between your hearts. Verily in that are signs for those who reflect." Love and mercy are very much part of marriage as described in the Quran. Although the Quran may prescribe different roles for males, husbands often seen as the provider. The equality between husband and wife is promoted when it is dedicated in Surah 2 of verse 187, "They, your wives, are as a garment to you, and you are as a garment to them." So again, this is not about some sort of, sex-hungry man. Yes, I've got more than... Even the harems were technically forbidden. The harems were actually un-Islamic, because that was more than 4 wives. That was hundreds of sex slaves, essentially. That is not Islamic. As you can clearly see here, the description of marriage is about love and mercy. And this Quranic verse was revealed out of protection and mercy for the women. What's wrong?
He just doesn't want more than one wife. I mean, that's why he's just
Yeah.
pushing back on it. I mean, that is really the one side. I don't give him more than he can deal with, and I can understand. I mean, a lot of men think, "Oh my God, it's enough having one wife." And I guess in times of war, men might be saying, "No, I think you should, take a few more wives because they're widows and blah blah," and
I
the
mean,
men
if we're in a war situation, I
not
think
want to.
Aaron would change his mind. I do think Aaron, if you were in a really big war
Yeah.
situation,
But this is an extreme example. I mean, even how can I
But
say?
you can see from the verse, the way the verse is saying is that monogamy is
Extreme
still the
case.
ideal.
It's an extreme
Yeah,
case. This is
in
not.
extremeness, then
Yeah.
you have
yeah,
to
exactly,
take
and
that.
that is a reflection
Yeah, and
of the
even then,
statistics that I raised.
look, even then, okay. So if you have like, for example, right now in modern society, you have social welfare, right? So if the father is absent, right, or dead, the state will provide for the woman and the children, right? That brings, however, the problem is then the child hasn't have a father to grow up with. I would say we have to change the society, especially that when it comes, I am for segregating the schools for boys and girls. So at least there they
I
have
agree.
like a father figure in the teacher
Mm.
and so on. So
Mhm.
maybe this is enough for the child. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
but
what we
other than
believe in
that, when
segregation
it
as
only
well.
comes to
But they should set the
providing,
idea that boys
I
are
mean, you
different to
said,
girls.
Subida, you said that the woman, when she has a child, she doesn't have much time for her man anyway. So it shouldn't be a problem that the father is absent for the wife. Should also only be a problem for the child, maybe, right?
No, I'm saying that there is a certain period. It's not a long period, but there are certain periods. Like a lot of women, when they give birth, they do end up getting post-traumatic stress disorder, because giving birth and being pregnant can be a bit of a traumatic experience because your body's changing, and some women tend to actually be resentful for the man. This is science, what I'm saying, and they believe that it's the man's fault. He's the one that's caused me to be like this because of him. So they end up sort of resenting the man. Am I lying, Claire? Does that not happen a lot with women?
Well, yes, I have a girlfriend who said she was sort of angry with her husband during childbirth, and he was there, and for causing her pain of her birthing
Exactly.
pain, sort of thing. So, but I guess what I'm trying to say about polygamy is that it's been made into a burden on a man. I mean, put like that, it's like, oh, but only if, there's so many conditions about being fair, and you know they're going to fight, and you have to deal with it, and maybe 4 sets of mothers-in-law might not be most men's cup of tea, and all the family disputes that come
Yeah.
with it. But if you think of Britain after the Second World War, and its labour shortage, and what they resorted to by importing cheaper labour from the colonies, Jamaica and India, it could be. The point could be made that if the British had been Muslim and adopted the strategy of just maybe even forcing men to take more than one wife, and you can imagine how reluctant they would be, they would have kept their, racial stock better.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can look at a lot of European history and say, if you'd been Muslim, you wouldn't have got into that trouble. You wouldn't have started
I
that war.
think
You wouldn't have fought that war.
But hold on, Aaron,
the
before you
whole
come in, Aaron, just 1
yeah.
second, just before you come in, just make a quick statement. Just when you see a lion pack and you see the lion with the 3 or 4 lionesses and the little cubs, there's something very powerful about this. Just imagine this image that you see all the time in National Geographic of this herd. The father, the head, the 4 lionesses and the little cubs, just that power structure. And could you imagine a man, imagine yourself, Elron? Yes, their days might be hard. Having all these kids might be hard. But when you sit back and you look at your 3 wives with your, 6, 8 children, would you not feel a sense of pride, like, this is my herd, this is my team?
Well, when it comes to the lion thing, the only way I can put myself in the lion's shoes is basically as when I take over that mindset of like being in the role of a lion. What does that mean? That means basically being constantly in war, being constantly in the mindset of being a hunter, being a soldier. So basically, right, this is what it is. And when you look at the lion, what does he do? Look, I have to have a separate home then, okay? Because the lion is also not dealing with the lioness, all the different lioness all the time. It's mostly the lioness who are doing their stuff with the kids, and then sometimes the kids go to the father and he plays a little bit with them around, but most of the time he's absent, okay, from the kids. And I want to be absent from this whole madness of having so many wives surrounding me, okay? And
because you're scared, you're scary.
no, it's
they
even
do get scared
Yeah.
of the terrible
But hold on,
responsibility.
if you were a real man, you would be able to exert your masculinity, and you would able to get those women to submit and be disciplined. If you were a real man, those women wouldn't even be pushing their weight around.
No,
They
a
wouldn't be
real
giving you a
man,
head-
look, a real leader isn't there for the woman all the time. A real leader has more important stuff to do. He's a statesman, okay? He's winning wars. This is what a real man is doing, and then the wife is mostly alone. This is what a real man does.
No.
But if I think to me, yeah, this is the most powerful man, okay? And then when I'm thinking about, okay, you have this other case where I have to deal constantly with women. Oh, this is not a real man, okay? This is madness. This is hell.
Yeah, because you're scary. That's what I'm saying. A real man would exert his masculinity. Those women, when they are around him, they would respect his dominance, they would respect his authority, and they wouldn't be pushing their weight around and giving him a hard time. But Elron, they'll be bullying you.
Yeah, but even then, look, men and women are different, okay? So, what I'm trying to say is, okay, I can't imagine like spending a lot of time with women. It's impossible for me because they are thinking otherwise, and I can't constantly go to restaurants or something like this.
Take them shopping.
Yeah, or take them shopping. I mean, this is hell. What should I do with these women?
No,
well, okay, Zubaydah, I mean, to be fair, if you were a man, would you have more than one woman? I think you would, right?
I think he would, yeah.
Yeah,
You
but,
would. I mean, if you were a
for
man.
other reasons, just for I don't know, for pleasure or something like this.
Yeah, but
Not for
what we're saying is that
or making me feel
having
good.
4
Yes,
wives
it
is
makes
more
me
than just
feel
having
good
sex with
that
4
many
women.
women are admiring me. For example, when I come home, oh,
So, but
this
this is
beautiful.
how I know you're unjust, and how even the Islamic way is better than yours, because you would only take more than one wife for pleasure. The Islamic stance is not
No,
even
I'm
that.
not saying it is only for pleasure.
That's what I'm saying.
This is what I make a difference. Okay, a relationship is not only about pleasure, and I can't imagine being in a multiple relationship where I have this feeling of a relationship with many different wives. It's impossible for me to think like this.
It's
I'm
horrific.
sorry.
He doesn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
mean,
I've said
I
everything. I will get nightmares from this.
Yes,
Okay.
the poor man, you frighten him, Zubaydah.
This you really
He
highlighted the
wants to go
difference
now.
between European men and
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm an outlier. I don't know. I would love to hear. I think not many European men have thought about, and we are talking about relationships, okay? I'm not just talking about sex or harem. Many European men would love to have that experience or something like this, okay? We are talking about your example of marriage with multiple wives, okay? This is what we are talking about. I would be interested if other European men think like me, or have it. Maybe I'm an
who
outlier.
the
I
hell
don't
is
know.
this?
My name is Ahmad. I'm from Turkey.
Who is
Oh.
that? Anyway, I've said everything, Subida. It was a nice discussion. I have to go now.
That is, yeah,
Also, the
it's
other
interesting.
topics
Sweet dreams.
was a great
And
debate.
he's gonna start dreaming, and he's gonna have nightmares about all these German
Yeah.
women.
I'm watching now a few episodes of Babylon Berlin. Maybe I maybe that will clear my mind now.
Mm.
This is hilarious. I can't lie.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. Also, the other topics were also very interesting. So, yeah.
Big up yourself, man.
All right. Good
Okay.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care, Elwell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sweet
that was.
dreams.
I didn't actually think I would have a conversation like this with you and Elron. It was actually interesting dynamic. To be
Well,
honest.
you're going to keep this one up, aren't you? Because I mean, the polygamy discussion was great. I thought.
But you know what it is? In the beginning, I was going in on the gay community. I don't know.
Well, I hope you'll just keep the polygamy bit, because I think it's just maybe you can
Do you think
edit
it was a
or something.
good?
I thought it was great. Please don't dump it.
No,
Because I
usually
think
I
it's
put it
important.
on
I thought it
private.
was really funny that there were these 2 women, pushing polygamy, and Elwood saying, no, please, I want to go now. I thought that's great. So please keep it and clip
That's
it
the
or
funniest
something.
thing, though. Like 2 women promoting polygamy, whilst the man's like, "No, I don't want more than one wife."
I don't want I don't want to have to manage 2 women and pay for their shit and their kids and their quarrels, and I can
It's
sort of see
absolutely
his point
insane.
of view.
But I mean, for me, like I said, I would only get into a situation like that if there was greater benefit compared to the disadvantages. The only disadvantage really would be, okay, he's got another wife. Am I willing to swallow that in exchange for provision, security, stability?
No. I mean, and the thing is, actually, it's well established that women don't mind sharing. That's why all these caliphs and sultans had harems, because they're all these sort of pretty women who said, well, I wouldn't mind being chosen by the sultan, caliph, or
Yeah.
whatever, and they'd be quite happy with that. And I remember seeing this documentary years ago, and it was they got all these London girls and made them, live in African villages and talk about polygamy, and the London girl stick a nose up and say, it's not for me, I'm not going to share. And the man would say, well, actually, you'd want to, because, who would help you do all the work and look after the chickens and the goats and the cooking and the
Exactly.
it's a division of labor thing. It's not, um,
And
and I,
you would have a friend, if you had another wife, you would have another friend with you, a woman that you could, be friends with and socialize with in this scenario. It's actually a beautiful thing once you think about it. Like, for me anyway, like having this large extended family, and obviously, the man, the head of the household. I mean, again, when people think of marriage, they think of this Hollywood Western romanticized version where everything, every second is roses and daisies, and that's not the reality. That is not the reality of how marriage is. Anybody that's been in a long-term relationship or long-term marriage, in order to keep it going, it requires a lot of effort, and most people end up giving up.
Yeah. And the maximum of 4 is sensible, because I mean, I guess, if the really 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 rich guy gets all the women, then the other men will just not have any chance at marrying, and then they'll get all criminal and rapey, and so polygamous societies can be actually quite unstable and not very safe for women.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm just speaking from my own perspective, and this is something that I've had to grow into as well. Like, men need constant satisfying and, attention and all these things. And, women are human beings. We can't constantly cater 24/7. So, like you said, if you have somebody with you to help split the workload, it's a win-win. And like, I just speak for myself. I'm somebody that's very introverted. I like to be on my own. I like to have my own company. Like, I can spend hours and hours, days on days by myself, and I'm fine. Like, so I would be very suitable for a situation like this. I'm not a needy person. I don't need him to come and give me cuddles and kisses every 5 seconds. It's like, but obviously I still have my needs. Don't get it twisted. Like, I would still want to spend some time, but that constant being around each other all the time, nah, count me out of that. So when I feel like, okay, I need my space now, at least I know that when he leaves, I'm not going to leave him in a bad situation where he's on his own. He can, if he wanted to, he would have that alternative. She has to dump the stream. She called me a fat. Bayaki, why are you still here? Like, I don't really get it. Like, you just want men to pay for everything. Well, why not?
Why not?
Like,
I mean, that's...
yeah, but like Quran says, men are providers. Like, I don't know if you like what your culture says, but of course, men are the providers.
Yeah, and even men know that in order to get a woman interested in you have to buy her, give her a few free things like meals and drinks and
Look, men are looking
entertainment
for
and
beauty.
whatever.
They're looking for fertility. They're looking for desire. Women are looking for provision. They're looking for security. So, like, it's a two-way thing. Like,
Sex object, meal ticket. Sex object, meal ticket.
Exactly. Like, why would you allow your daughter to marry a penniless man? Like, be serious, bro. This guy is so unrealistic, and this has actually highlighted a big thing in my head: the difference between European men and non-European men, mostly from Middle East and Africa, because it's like they've got such a small way of thinking. They're not thinking long term. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, preserving your lineage and creating a lineage is one of the most best things you could do as a man. To create a lineage, teach them great morals, principles, so that they can carry on to do these things is better. You'd have a friend to discuss the sexual. Here's another different thing. If a woman was to sleep with 2 men, she's most likely, because when 2 penises come in contact with each other, that's how sexual diseases are spread. But if one penis is going into one woman and another woman, the sexual disease, I don't even think you can catch it.
Hmm.
No, I have to find the research that I did on this because someone tried to bring this argument to me before. And obviously we clean ourselves. Our men are circumcised. So a man, unless the woman has some sort of yeast infection, which again is caused by dirty bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the cleanliness is upheld for all parties, then there would be no problem compared to a woman sleeping with two men and her private parts has had contact with two different penises. Then of course there's going to be some disease there. Can women catch disease, STDs? Let me research this. What STD can be? Some STDs such as are transmitted by skin to skin. Other infections such as bacteria can pass between women in the vagina. Can you get chlamydia? I need to find the research. We're just talking about lesbians. If you could attempt to construct a proper sentence in English. Man said, if you could attempt to construct a proper sentence in English, that would be great. My bird nurse is violating me. Anyway, look, I'm just sharing my opinion and my thoughts. Claire's sharing hers. I don't know why people are so triggered. Like, it is what it is. I'm a Muslim. I believe in what Allah says, and everything that Allah has dictated, I believe is true.
And there's a verse in the Quran that says we are here to grow in wisdom, or words to that effect, or use our reason or something. And I thought, well, that's a good enough reason, whether you believe in God or not.
Yeah, but hold on. This idiot called Luke says this is why Islam makes no sense. On one hand, the Quran says that if you have many sexual partners, Allah sends many diseases to you, but then it promotes multiple partners. No, and you've just misrepresented. It doesn't promote multiple partners. It promotes having one wife or having maximum 4 wives. Now, it's on the basis that, for instance, once a wife divorces, she has to wait 3 months. 3 months before she can get married and have a consummation. So let's just say I divorced my husband and 2 weeks later I married another man. That new man that I'm married to, I can't touch him after 3 months in case I am pregnant. So there will be a waiting period where I cannot sleep with this individual. Now, Allah says don't take multiple sexual partners in fornication. So we're speaking about a lot of these degenerates this day and age who sleep with a different man every weekend. This is what Islam doesn't promote that. So of course, if you're sleeping with Jack on Saturday, then you're sleeping with Tom on Sunday. Just before you slept with Jack, Jack slept with Sally a week ago. So now we're getting these diseases. So you slept with Jack, Jack slept with Sally a week ago. Sally slept with Tom. So now Sally's carrying Tom's disease to give to Jack, to give to you. But anyway, you then on Sunday sleep with Barry. Barry has, I don't know, had sex with Amy. Amy had sex with John. Now Amy's carrying John's disease, who's now giving it to Barry, who's now giving it to you. Do you see this cycle? Just sexual disease getting spread round and round and round and round. Compared to Ali getting married to Miriam and Sarah. Sarah is a virgin, so there's no disease from her. And Miriam, she got divorced. She's waited 3 months. She's done her STD. She doesn't have anything because the guy that Miriam got married to wasn't around sleeping with everybody. So both of them are clean. So now there is no sexual disease to be spread around in this group because one is a virgin, she's never had sex with anybody else, and the other one is clean. So what's your point here, mate? You get what I'm saying to you, Claire?
They just want to do Islam down, and well, they have nothing better in its place. Like, they can't even say them. They can't even define a woman. There are lots of things they can't say. Terrible things are happening to the way they are being described and labeled in their own country, and it's like, oh, it's nothing to do with Christo-liberalism not doing. Not working, basically, not working. I mean, they should be grateful that there's something, that they could be using if they were not being so snooty.
Exactly. Alaikum salam, gang. You missed the whole conversation, man. You might as well go to sleep. You missed the juicy parts, the everything. It's debatable. What if there was no scientific method to check if Maryam had no STD? How would you check she is? Yeah, because there are certain physical symptoms that come with an STD, isn't there? You would know if you have an STD. But that's the point. Maryam would least likely have an STD because her previous husband wasn't around sleeping with many women. He was only sleeping with her. So we try to contain this and not go around fornicating with everybody so that we can these things don't happen. The only time these things happen is if somebody has multiple... Somebody said, Claire, stop misrepresenting. I'm not promoting illicit sexual... Is that what you said about him, Claire? He was promoting illicit sexuality.
I don't know. No. I mean, I think he must have misunderstood what I was saying. No, I mean, because I was saying that you can see from the verses talking about polygamy that it's only tolerated. It's only tolerated. It's not recommended. It's tolerated, and monogamy is still the ideal.
Exactly. Perfect. What she just said. Perfect.
And a lot of these verses are drafted in a very, I don't know. I mean, if you're a legal draftsman, you think, it's very well drafted. It considers all the loopholes that you might want to plug, and explains the intention behind the verse and all that. And you just don't get that in the New Testament or the Torah, which is like a sledgehammer. The
Quran's very clear in this matter.
And it doesn't have 36 capital offenses, which is, what the Torah has.
No, I'm not going to join your fake internet harem. The point is, I don't want people to get excited. I said that I would only do this in specific circumstances. Let's just say a rich millionaire from Dubai said to me, "You want to be my second wife? I'm going to give you a lovely villa in Abu Dhabi. That's your home. I'm going to give you a car, which is yours." Yes. Of course, like the fact. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And I could that chance could be very. I could do that. I could go to Dubai and find a rich, wealthy man, and that could happen. But I'm not looking for it. I would prefer idealistically to be married to one man and have a loving marriage and kids and whatnot. But at the same time, I wouldn't rule out the second option.
You're being realistic, which is what a lot of people refuse to do. They just stick for he has to be a prince and blah blah blah, But I think it's good to think, well, the ideal would be this, but I will settle for the whatever it is, and at least you're examining your options in a rational way. And not
we're living in a fast-paced world this day and age, and the thing is, it's like, as a woman, you have to start securing your future. You have to start securing your foundations. Otherwise, you don't want to end up, long term in the future. Your options are very limited, and that's it. I want to have a family and children and a husband and a unit. And whilst I'm young, I should start searching now. I don't want to wait any longer. But at the same time, like you say, I have to be realistic. Some options are better than the other. Some are more reasonable than others. Marrying someone shouldn't just be based on it. Of course not. Again, what we're speaking about is being a second wife. I wouldn't be second wife to your average Joe. But if a rich, wealthy man who was able to provide for me and the first wife and all of our kids, then of course, why not? Because he's able to do that. Like a lot of these guys, you've even seen it online with these little clowns trying to get more than one wife when they live in a box room in their mum's house. How dare you? How dare you even suggest that you wouldn't have more than one wife when you're literally making breakfast in your mum's kitchen? But a man who was wealthy, who I can at least be safe with and know that, yes, okay, I'm his second wife, but he's able to provide for me, then I would rather go in that situation. Because realistically, most wealthy men wouldn't just stick with one wife. What are you saying this, Claire? He said 2 non-whites laughing at European men. Imagine my shock. But no one's laughing at you. I don't know why this guy is an absolute idiot.
He does hang around you quite a lot. Oh yes, you met him. Well, you know him. You've known him for years, right?
No, I don't know him. I've never met him. He's an Australian ethno-nationalist who apparently lives in in the woods somewhere, and he just comes on to these chats just trolling. His name is Bayaki. He's just, I don't know. What if he's rich and can afford 20 wives? Yeah, but that's what I don't believe in that, Luke. Islam says you can only take 4.
It has its limits.
Yeah. What if he's rich and can afford 20 wives but sleeps with other would you say? No, I wouldn't marry him. I would only marry somebody within the Islamic framework. This is really not understanding. I'm not like if he was a wealthy Muslim man who married me in alignment with the conditions of Islam, I have to be very specific with these things, then yes, it will work. By him having 20 wives and sleeping with, that's not Islamic. He would not be living his life in accordance to Islam, so I don't want nothing to do with him. You know, like your soul is for sale, Islam. Yeah, whatever. Only if you can treat them with just and fairly. Yeah, we already went through this, Gain. We already went through this. Trust me, I literally broke down the ins and outs of polygamy, what it says in the Quran. Polygamy is evil. Thank goodness the West forced the world to say, oh, what? And you call yourself intellects man. I don't know, like, European men must be scared of women. Because, like, I don't know what this is. Polygamy isn't evil. You can say it's wrong according to you, but to say that it's evil, I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, because it actually gives the women rights. Otherwise, they'd just be pumped and dumped, wouldn't they? I mean, the whole thing about marriage is that it protects the rights of both parties. I mean, the man wants to know the kids are his, and the women want to be, protected and provided in return for giving the man sex and children. It's a bargain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and people sort of, it's just because it's out of love. It's like, no, fundamentally there's a bargain. And if you understand the nature of the bargain, you're more likely to stick to it.
Exactly. People just forget 2 wives or more, just one first. Fulfill half your deen, but many can't get one. Too much needy and wants too much expectations. Yeah, like I said, it takes a specific type of man to be able to manage more than one wife. You have to be very emotionally mature, and you're not going to really find a lot of men like that this day and age.
Yeah, because I suppose ideally, I suppose I can imagine if I were a man, it's like, yeah, I would actually like them to be living in separate households, but that would be really expensive, right? But if you put them all together, they're just going to fight. about, the kitchen,
Exactly.
whatever. So they have to have their own separate kitchen area, and I don't know. I mean, oh yeah, I have a book about how Muslim men are supposed to deal with their wives, and it's like every time they want to go on holiday, it's like a kind of company meeting. It's like, which one of you shall I choose? Or which one do I don't know. You have to decide, and then you have to bring them, presents of equal value, and it's just really a burden. It doesn't sound fun at all. It's like
No, you
running a
know what I need
business.
to do next time? I need to share the documentary, the polygamy documentary. Let me find it actually, so I can share it in the link, because it's actually a really interesting documentary. Polygamy. Here we go. I found it. Here it is. Right. So to all you haters in the comment section, I know this documentary is going to piss a lot of people off. I know it's definitely going to piss Mayaki off. But here's the document. I'll send it to you in the private chat, Claire, so you can
Thank
save
you.
it. It's a very, really good documentary. It's about actual British people who basically, are in polygamous relationships or marriages. No one wants to. No, maybe you don't want 2 wives, but many men would love to have 2 wives. Like, I don't understand.
Oh, I remember years ago, Tim Winter, when he was still doing the Today program, Thought for the Day, and he was talking about Muslim wives who want their husbands to take another wife, because apparently, the first one, she's got an important professional job, and then she's had a baby, and she kind of wants somebody else to look after her baby, and then she thought it might be good if her husband took a second wife, and then she can, do all the housework or something, and look after the kids
Exactly.
while they're both at work.
But this is what a lot of these idiots just don't understand in a big society. You have to keep the ball rolling here. There's sacrifices that need to be made. Marriage is more than its responsibility and security, also treating all your children with equal love from different wives. But I'm sure half the bros and sis end up fighting each other. Yeah, but you're just speaking about the negatives. Yes, that is a negative that could happen, but the positive thing is you will have this strong unity, this strong household. I compared it to the lions. Imagine a strong lion, male lion, and he's got his 3-4 lionesses beside him, with all those little cubs who are going to be the future. I mean, that's a herd, a pride to be proud of. That whole family unit. I don't think I grew up with quite a large family. I had 4 sisters, and when I was really, really young, before I went through what I went through, my father, my mother, my 4 sisters, all of us sitting together. I mean, my mother's mother had 13 kids. So when I went to Algeria, and I would be around like my cousins, like my 20, 30 cousins, and like we were all united upon the same blood. We were all one large family. Like, I don't think people understand this, that most of these Europeans, they grow up with, their one annoying sister that they hate, or their little brother that they can't stand, and their father was barely around, and that shitty family unit, of course people are just going to be like, ugh, but when you grow up in a large family, where you have that bond, from the
And cousins to play with.
yeah, like this just large family unit. There's something very powerful about this. A man said 2 mothers-in-laws. Like, all the kids would be like half brothers and half. They would all come from the same father, but different mums. But even then, like, most of the mums would just be like your mum anyway. So you wouldn't really differentiate between like, oh, that's my mum and that. Like, everyone would be the same. Who are these pansies in the chat? Be a lion, my friend. Like, men, you need to start understanding something. Like, I'm not saying that you should go and take more than one wife or whatever, but the point is, stop repressing your nature. Like, this whole thing about men being forced down to one girl, the Western concept of marriage is detrimental to the man, and this is what men need to understand. Don't just settle with a woman because of the sake of saying that you have a woman. Like, if you want to be monogamous, that's fine, but remember who you're going to be monogamous with, and remember that there are options as well. So you want to be with Sally or Amy for the rest of your life, you be with her for the rest of your life, but don't 20 years later look back and think, oh, I've wasted 20 years with Amy. And to be honest, I barely got anything back. Amy didn't have no kids. She wanted to go chase her career. And I'm stuck here as a 38-year-old with nothing to show. Hey, I can't believe these European guys in the chat, they're like literally like mind blown. They can't imagine having more than one wife. I think for them, they struggle to get one. And so the idea of having two is just overwhelming. Imagine having
frightening. I mean, they don't even want to marry a woman of their own race, even if one could be found for them. I mean, that's how bad things are for them now.
Based enjoyer. I agree with you. A vow is a vow. But how many Europeans have broken that vow? The divorce rates in the West is off the roof. Bro, people will do vow for vow, but then they'll be shagging their bloody manager at the workplace. Come on, lad. Do you know how many times I've seen cases of till death do us part, and next thing you know, she's getting bent over by her manager late hours at the work. Or he's down at the pub getting it on with Sarah. Come on, like, you lot say things and then you do the complete opposite. Go and check the statistics for the divorce rates in England. It is this is why these people are willingly to become divorce lawyers. They're making money, bro. Like, if you want to make money, become a divorce lawyer. You're going to get that check. You're going to get that check.
What are you eating?
Chewing gum. I know it sounds really loud. I don't care personally about marrying multiple women, but I 100% Sharia and aim to uphold it. If you're against the Sharia as a Muslim, you're a kafir. Absolutely. Cheating is different from relationships. That's why it's called cheating. Most women won't allow it. Well, again, you haven't... Because, look, if you go to a woman and actually get her to think and say to her, look, would you rather be a second wife to a wealthy man who will provide for you, look after you, give you everything that you want, but yeah, you kind of do have to share him, or you will be stuck with this guy, one guy who, I don't know, works at McDonald's for the rest of your life. If you really get her to think about it, she's going to choose to be with a wealthy guy whilst being his second wife. I'm telling you, women sit here and pretend that they want this loyalty and this romantic relationship, but if you actually give them an opportunity, they will leave you. They will say hell no, because you lot think that love is the end all and be all. Get a grip, mate. Like, a lot of these people, they think that they've fallen in love, yeah, and then months, years later down the line, it just all crumbles apart because relationships are not founded on love. They're not. I'm sorry. Relationships are founded on mutual respect, on loyalty, on understanding.
On common shared objectives, I think,
That's right.
which would be the children,
You think without loyalty and without all these things, love is that's it. Love. Oh, I love you, darling, and that's it. Come on, mate. So many people say they love and then they betray them. Like, come on. This is not Romeo and Juliet. This isn't bloody. You gotta be realistic out here, mate.
It's your life, so be realistic instead of go into it with fairy tale stories and whatever rom-com.
You're obviously not listening, Gain, because I just said respect, dignity, honor, but of course security. Like, are you saying that it's wrong for a woman to want security? Because look, the thing is, most of you guys will say a woman doesn't need to work. I'll provide for her. So then provide. So you're basically telling me that I have to not work and rely on you. So if I'm going to rely on you, then I expect to get something worth relying on. What are you talking about? Like most Muslim men would not let their wife work. Okay, if I'm not going to work, then who's going to pay for the stuff that I want? Who's going to look after me? Because what, you're going to just expect us to sit there at home and not have anything to ourselves? Like, say I wanted to buy a new hijab and I have no money. Okay, well, my husband has to give me that, right? Come on, mate, be serious. 1 wife, 3 babies, that's enough. Well done for you, based. Now, I'm saying this seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. Good on ya. It's unfair. Again, it's the same thing that a Muslim man is entitled to say, I prefer a 20-year-old virgin over a 26-year-old. In Islam, you're allowed to have your preference. You're allowed to have your preference. You can't say to me that I am wrong as a Muslim woman for saying, you know what, I don't want to go with a man that works in McDonald's. It's the same way that a Muslim man is not wrong for saying, I only want a virgin. That's my preference. That's the type of girl that I want. So, in Islam, even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave, 4 or 5 conditions as to why you could marry a woman. You can marry her for her status. You can marry her for her wealth. You can marry her for her beauty. So, the same thing for us women. I can marry you for your status. I can marry you for your beauty. I can marry you for your wealth. Why am I wrong for that? Why am I wrong for having a specific preference? Why? This is my future. This is my life. I want to have a good life. Like, I don't understand. Why is it wrong when women have preferences, but when men have preferences, she has to look like this. She has to be this age. She has to be a virgin. She has to be this. Da, da, da. No one says anything. No one says, brother, come on. Why does she have to be a virgin, brother? Just doesn't matter if she's not a virgin, Aki. Just marry her. You know, it's just absolutely, I don't know how to really say it, but it's just crazy. And 4 wives and 16 kids just to spite you, and it doesn't qualify. You know, is it wrong, Claire, for women to have preference?
No, because it just means that she has an opinion, and you know, all these fairy stories about, you know, the girl marrying her prince. I mean, you know, what is that but hypergamy that's been instilled for centuries? It's not just this, you know, thing that came up recently. You know, every little girl wants to marry her prince, even though she's a commoner.
Exactly. You know what it is? That's actually very interesting. That you say that, because women actually have it easier than men. A man is most likely to marry a broke girl compared to a woman marrying a broke guy. See that?
Well, I mean, I think what terrifies them is that, you know, she's you know, just going to get fat after you marry, after she's married, and you know, and will make him unhappy, and he has to pay for it. So I guess that would be.
Again, listen to what you're saying, bro. What are the conditions of having just 1 wife? Providing, yes? So having more than 1 wife is extra providing. How could you provide for 1 wife, 2 wives, the first wife's kids and the second wife's kids if you're not financially stable? Are you being serious with me here? And if you were here earlier again, this is why 2% of the world's population engages in polygamy. 2%. Because no one can do it this day and age, because there are so many conditions: fairness, justice, equality, and provision. Are you being so? A man working in McDonald's, do you think it's wise for him to take more than one wife? Like, listen to what you're saying, bro. Like, you have to meet the woman's financial needs. Financial needs is very important. I don't know why you're dismissing this. Again, you're trying to act like marriage is all about, oh, love, and we'll get through it together. And nah, bro. Do you know what financial struggle looks like? It's not even a joke. No, Akil, my views are influenced by, first and foremost, Islam. I've always been defending the position of having more than one wife, like from years ago. And I've just enhanced on that. I've taken other sources in terms of realistic scenarios and just, who's this person?
Hey, why you not talk with me? I just wanted to say Salam Alaikum to better sister. You kick me out. That's not nice, you know?
Okay, why are you doing this? You're not saying anything serious. Like, what are you doing?